In this lesson, you'll be adding a new feature to the chat application, which is going to allow users to share their exact location with one another. Now, to actually get the user's location, we'll be running a little client-side JavaScript code using the browser's geolocation API. That gives us a way to fetch the location for a given user, assuming, of course, they consent to sharing their location. We'll be using that from client-side JavaScript to fetch their latitude and longitude, and once we have those coordinates, we'll share them with the server, who will share them with all other connected clients. So it's similar to how we share a message, though instead of the user typing a message and sharing that, we'll be fetching coordinates using this browser API and sharing those. Now, the exact API we're going to use can be found by cracking open a new browser tab. Right here, we're going to Google MDN geolocation. MDN standing for the Mozilla Developer Network. It is a great set of documentation for everything browser-based. Right here, we can view the API documentation, which is going to show us how we can fetch that location. Now, I'm only pulling this up so you know where it lives. Of course, we're going to go through all of this together in the lesson. So let's go ahead and get started, and the first thing we need to do is make a change to the user interface. What we're going to do is show them another button which they can click to share their location, and that will show up for other users like a regular chat message. Now let's go ahead and get that done by moving over to index.html. We're going to create a new button just outside of the form. So right down below, I'll create a new button with the text of send location or something similar. You can use whatever you'd like. And we're also going to set up an ID so we can easily target this button from JavaScript. Right here, let's go ahead and use something like send location. Perfect. Now we can go ahead and save the file and actually wire up a click event for this button over in chat.js. When the button is clicked, then we'll use that geolocation API to actually fetch the user's location. Over in chat.js, all of that is going to happen at the very bottom of the file. Right here, we'll kick this off with code we already know about. I'm just going to use document.querySelector to grab that button by its ID, and the ID we picked was send location. And from there, I'll use add event listener. And we are going to add the click event listener, and we'll run the following function when the button is clicked. Now, not every browser supports this geolocation API. Most modern browsers do, but if they're using an older operating system and an older browser, we want to make sure to show them a message if they're not going to be able to perform this operation. Now, everything we need for geolocation lives on navigator.geolocation. Now, if this exists, that means they have support for it. If this does not exist, that means they don't have support for it. So what we're going to do is use this inside of an if statement to check if they don't have support. Right here, if, we're going to look at that property once again, that is navigator.geolocation, and then we're going to use the logical not operator to check if it does not exist. If it does not exist, we're going to run the following code. I'm going to use return to stop the function execution, and we're just going to stick with an old school alert function call to print a little message. You could use a modal if you wanted to, but for now, an alert will get the job done. Right here, something like geolocation is not supported by your browser. Perfect. Now, down below, we'll run some code for when geolocation is supported, and the first and only thing we're going to do is get their location so we can share it. The location can be fetched using navigator.geolocation.getCurrentPosition. Now, getCurrentPosition is indeed asynchronous. It takes a little time to get the location, but unfortunately, it currently does not support the promise API, so we can't use promises or async await. Instead, we'll be calling this function, passing to it a single callback function. This could be a standard function or an arrow function. I'll stick with an arrow function. Now this function will eventually get called with an object called position, and this contains the information we want to share. Now before we actually share it, let's go ahead and log it to the console to see what exactly we have access to. So right here, all I'm going to do is log out the position object. Now we can save chat.js and actually test things out. I'll make sure all my files are saved and I'll refresh the browser. Right here, we have our send location button. Now, when I click that, I'm gonna have to consent to sharing my location. Right here, Chrome is letting me know that localhost 3000 wants to know my location. I'll click allow, and it's gonna take maybe a couple of seconds for the location to get fetched, and once it is, we'll see the object down below. Now, if I expand it, we can see we have a timestamp property showing when the location was actually fetched, and then we have chords. If I crack that open, we can see we have the latitude and the longitude, and that is exactly what we want access to. Those are the two values we're going to share with the server, as this is enough information to determine your location. Now, getting the rest of this done is something that you already know how to do, so we're not going to do it together. Instead, it'll be your challenge for the lesson. So down below, I'm going to paste in the challenge comments describing what I'd like you to do. The big picture goal is to share those coordinates with the other users. Now later on in the section, we'll learn how to share a link that links to a Google API map with your location pinned, but for now, we're just going to share the latitude and longitude as text. So step 1, you're going to have the client emit a new event called sendLocation. And the data is going to be a single object with the following properties. The object should contain the latitude and longitude properties with the correct values off of the position object, and you're going to emit that event right here. Now, once the event is emitted from chat.js, that's the only change you'll need to make to this file. The other change is going to be on the server. Since you're emitting this new event from the client, the server needs to listen for it. So set up the server to listen for send location. When the server receives that, it should fire off a message event to all connected clients, a string in the following format: location, space, then the actual longitude, comma, followed by the actual latitude. Actually, I believe that's reversed. It should be the latitude followed by the longitude. Perfect. So once again, you want to replace lat and long with the actual values that the server received. You're going to send all of this as a string message, like we're already sending our messages from server to client. Then you're going to test your work. When you click send location, the result is that you should see a new message in the terminal with those coordinates showing up. If you had two users, user 1 should be able to share the location, and user 2 should see the coordinates. So take some time to knock that out, test your work, and when you're done, come back and click play. All right, how'd you do? Let's go ahead and kick things off by sending the location from the client to the server. So right here, what do we want to do? I want to use socket.emit to emit a new event. I said the name should be send location, so I'll provide that as the first argument. And I said the only piece of data we need to send is an object, so I'll provide that as the second argument. Now on here, we want to get access to the latitude and the longitude, so we'll go ahead and set up both of those properties, grabbing them off of the position object we had dumped to the terminal earlier. So right here, let's go ahead and start with the latitude. We're going to grab that off of position. Now that is position.chords, as we saw over here in the terminal for the Chrome developer tools. Then that is chords.latitude. Perfect. Next up is the longitude. So right here, we'll go ahead and list that one out. And once again, position.chords. Right here, longitude. Excellent. And there we go. That's the only thing we need to do from the client. Everything else is going to go ahead and happen on the server. So we have latitude and latitude and longitude and longitude. Now we can go ahead and remove osconsole.logging that position. There's no longer any need to actually do that. If you still have that in place, just go ahead and remove it now. And next up, we're going to receive this event on the server and make sure it gets shared correctly. So over here in index.js, what I'm going to do is set up a new listener. So right here, we have on send message. This is where we send our messages out to all connected clients. We're going to set up another socket.onCall, this time listening for send location. And when that happens, we're going to get access to our object, the one that we just set up, and we could call that whatever we wanted to, such as chords. Perfect. Next up, we want to make sure we share that data with all connected clients. And we know that when we want to do that, we use io.emit. And right here, we are going to emit the message event, and we are going to provide our string, and I'll use an ES6 template string to generate what we want to generate. Now, I outlined that right over here in the challenge comments, so let's go ahead and knock that one out. We start off with location : space, followed by the latitude. So I will interpolate chords.latitude. Then after latitude, a comma and a space, followed by, right here, chords.longitude. Perfect. And with this in place, we are all done. The location gets shared from client to server, and then the server shares it with everyone else. Let's go ahead and make sure we've saved all of our files, and over in the browser, I'm going to give things a quick refresh. Now let's go ahead and create a second browser window as well. Right here, I'll navigate over to localhost on port 3000. And I'm also going to open up the Chrome developer tools for this one. Now, when we share the location again, we're not going to have to tell the browser that we want to allow the site to access it, as we've already consented to it. So right here, I'm going to have user 2 share their location, and I can see that we have the coordinate pair showing up for everyone. That means the location was fetched, it was shared with the server, and the server shared it with everyone else. Now, to wrap up the lesson, all we're going to do is change the message we're sending back. So over in Visual Studio Code, we're going to send a link to Google Maps instead. This is going to show the exact location for these coordinates. So let's see what the URL structure for this looks like. It is HTTPS followed by : / then it is google.com/maps. Right here, we set up the question mark for our query string, and we set up Q, setting it equal to the latitude, which I'll just set to 0, followed by a comma, followed by the longitude. So this is the URL structure we want to use. Now, when we visit that, it's going to bring us over to Google Maps, and right here, I can see that it's dropped a pin at that exact location. Now, in this case, that is in the middle of the ocean, but once we actually change it to work with our real coordinates, it should be pretty accurate as to where we are in the world. So let's go ahead and get that done. I'm going to close down this tab. Over inside of Visual Studio Code, I can remove these challenge comments as we're all done with the challenge. I'll save the file, and in index.js, we're going to change the string we're sending back. Now right here, we do still want the latitude followed by the longitude, so we can keep that in place. What I'm going to do though is remove this space. From there, what we're going to do is change what's up front. We'll remove location : space, and this is where we'll put the rest of the URL. So once again, https : / google.com/maps, then question mark Q equals. Perfect. Now, when we send the actual geolocation information, it's in a much more useful form. So right here, I've saved the file, restarting the server. I'm going to head over to Google Chrome and just give both of those browser windows a quick refresh, and we're going to share the location from one with the other. When the location does show up, we'll see it's now a clickable link, and once again, we'll be integrating all of this into the user interface up above. And if we actually click it, it's going to open up Google Maps, and it's going to put a pin at that exact location. Right here, this isn't exactly where I am, but it's close enough. So now that we have this in place, we have the ability to share a user's location, providing useful information to everyone else. That's where we're going to stop for this one. In the next lesson, we'll continue on with our chat application, so stay tuned and I'll see you soon.